Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Kiddushin daf Samach Gimel. We're going to begin on Samach Beis with Beis 4 lines from the bottom. Amar Rabbi, Rabbi Lezer and Yaakov, for Rabbi, for Meir, Kul Sviruhu. They all hold the same concept, namely Adam Machna Dever Shul Ba'olam, that a person is able to be machna something even though it is not in this world. It still works. You can do it now. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov Hada Amar. When it came to Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov, so we already mentioned him regarding the din of truma. So in yesterday's daf, actually like 20 lines above, he says that if a person would say that he wants to separate truma on attached to detached or vice versa, that it will not work because you cannot separate truma on something which is attached. However, he throws in, he says that if you mention likashiyavu shlish, that when it will eventually grow a third, then it does work. So that obviously shows that he holds the Dever Shel Ba'olam works. Rabbi decides we continue to Samach Gimel Amud Aleph. Lo sasker eved el adoinav. So the pasuk is brought down Yevamos as hara lebeistin. So warning to Beistin, shelo yaskiruhu lebalav, that you should not enclose or lock up the man l'shabid boy. So Rabbi Omer, what is this boy? Kech eved al manas l'shachar kos medaber. This is referring to someone who purchases an eved on condition to free him. So heichidami Omer Rab Nachman Rabbi Yitzchak according to Kosavle that you wrote leshekachcha, when I purchase you hari atzmacha k'nuyelacha, then you will be acquired ma'achshav from now. So how can you make that statement? There's the Dever Shel Ba'olam, but it still works. Reb Meir desan yomer isha hari mikudeshes li. You marry me le'achashis gairi. After either I or you convert, or after you or I become free. Again, this is the mission we saw in yesterday's daf. After your husband dies, your sister dies, after chalitza is done in Mekadeshas, because the Dever Shel Ba'olam. So clearly, how could Rabbi Meir say that? Because he holds a person could be machna Dever Shel Ba'olam. Fine. That is clearly the shita of Rabbi Meir. Okay. So Rabbi Meir Omer Mekadeshas. Rabbi Yochanan Salar Omer Enu Mekadeshas. Rabbi Huda Nasi Omer Mekadeshas. So we see Rabbi Huda Nasi also agrees to him. So Matam Omru Enu Mekadeshas. So what would the only reason why would we say Taka it's not a good Kiddushin? Mishum Eva. Because there's an issue of Eva, of undue anger. Says Rashi, Evas Achaisa, Evas Bala, Va'ashara Rabbi Meir Svirale. In other words, he may actually hold like Rabbi Meir in general that you could do it. However, not when we're dealing with a situation of after your sister dies, after your husband dies, because you're going to cause them to get angry, right? These people are going to end up hating you. So these things we don't want you to say. So v'nechshav nami Rabbi Huda Hanasi. So why don't we mention him as well in the list? Hainu Rabbi Huda Nasi. It's the same person. So v'nechshav nami Rabbi Kiva. The Sanya, Rabbi Kiva should also be included in this list because he says regarding the Darim, kainim shani yoisel aficha ein tzorcha hafer. If a person makes a neder on something that I will do, kainim shani yoisel aficha, says Rashi, masa yodai, my actions you aficha will be in my mouth. Keheknish ein bal tzorcha hafer. You don't have to annul this. Shein nidra chal. It's not going to be chal. This neder shari mishubedes mishu evedeslo. So Rabbi Kiva Omer Yofer, you still have to annul Shema Tastiful of Yeser Min Haroilo, because maybe you'll add on to more than that. But he didn't. She didn't make the money yet. So that's what you see. Al Maisi Adeha Yeser Min Haroilo, more money than you actually need to make. So if she would, again, you make a neder regarding your wife, Kadim Shani Yosel Aficha, you don't have to be made for it because you have an obligation to. You're meshubedeslo. You're obligated to provide food and all these things. So you have to give her things, and she gives you the masiyadeha. So in that situation, you wouldn't even need to annul it. However, according to the shita of Rabbi Kiva, he says no. If she makes more money, then it does work. So the question is, wait a minute, she didn't make the money yet. So obviously we see that Rabbi Kiva must hold up. You can mount them shabla oilam. So it's a kasha. Why don't we mention Rabbi Kiva? We're talking about a case where she said, where they said, Yikadshu yodai Mimikadish, my hands. So he's saying him. Yadayim isnu ba'olim. This is brought down many times in Sethnas Nadarim, that since it has to be a davar sheyesh amish, it has to be something in which exists, and therefore you have to say Yadayim. Her Yadayim are in the world. So it's not approved necessarily, even though her Masi Yadayim is not in the world. She hasn't made the money yet, but her hands are in the world. It says next Masnisa. Says the next Mishnah. You say to a woman, on condition that I'm going to speak to this government official on your behalf. And I will work for you just like a worker. Rashi says, for a day. So, and if Itaka spoke to this guy, or and he worked like that, the Mekadeshas, because he fulfilled this condition. Fine. This seems pretty obvious. So in this, the Gemara says, in addition to him doing these things, which in itself is certainly more than a pruta worth of hana, he also had to give her a pruta. Are you telling me for everything else, all this other work that he did for her, that is not enough, that he also had to have given her a pruta when he made this declaration? Mosanya. B'schar shehir chavtich. A person says, this is going to end up al chamor. This is going to end up being question TA 30. We're going to get to our last question today. For the reward that I will give you a reward, I'll give you a ride on my donkey. Shahosh shavtich bekaron, that I already gave you the ride, or you already sat in my wagon or musfin in my boat, and Mikadeshas. That's not going to work because it was done already. However, that I will give you a ride, al chamor my donkey, that you will do so, then it will be a good Kiddushin. So we see no money is exchanged. So maybe he gave her money, but he says, he doesn't say money. He only says with a schar for the wages, for the work. But oh, Tanya, furthermore, shave imi b'tzavta, dwell and sit with me b'tzavta. Rashi says, I don't want to sit alone. Keep me company. And I'll marry you with that. Laugh in front of me, rock in front of me, dance. Ase kedimus hazeh, act like this building. Rashi says binyan. Shaman imish Moshe pruta mekadeshas, the 11 mekadeshas. So totally, if the thing itself is worth a pruta, so it's clear that he didn't give her a pruta, because then why to evaluate if this is worth a pruta? He already gave her a pruta. Must be you don't have to. Maybe he gave her money for shaman iso kaimer tifta reish lakish. How do we understand it? It says shaman. Why do you have to evaluate how much it is that it's worth a shaman pruta if you already gave a shaman pruta? It must be he didn't. Therefore, it's a kasher reish lakish. Shaman reish lakish. Hai tana bara. This tana savar, he holds anal schiris el b'saif. That when it comes to schiris, it happens all the way at the end. In other words, if you do all your job, the payment only comes at the very end. The tani didan savar yeshel schiris mitchil v'yad sof. This is question 12. And since there's schiris mitchil v'yad sof, that's the reason why you have to end up paying a pruta, because otherwise it's like a milva, and you cannot be mekadesh, as we saw before, with a milva. So my duchcha d'reish lakish ukmil masnisin b'yeshel schis mitchavad soif. Why are we saying that our Mishnah is talking about that specific case, ubediyoivla, and therefore it must be you gave a pruta? So Amarava masnisin kashise. Our Mishnah is difficult because my iridikani almanas. Why does the Mishnah say on condition? Nisni just say b'schar. Why does it use the language almanas? So it's an unbelievably important svar over here. When you said almanas, you already gave her the pruta. That's why over here it says almanas, and over there it says b'schar. So when you say almanas, har mekadeshesli, which means I'm giving you a pruta, and then almanas, something else. So therefore, something else was the schar. But in that case, you did give a pruta. But if you only said b'schar and not almanas, then you didn't have to give a pruta. Okay, which is question 12. All right, let's look at question TA 30. Hayim Kadeshes Umazet Toli. So Lamandi Amar Yishul Skirs Mechad Biad Sov Hedem Kadeshes. Lamandi Amar Skirs El Basoim Kadeshes. Okay, as we said before, has to do with Milval Hitzon Nisna. So this is TA 30, which wraps up all of our questions. Fine, which is also question 12. Let's see the next Mishnah. Almanas Shiyirtza Abba. So unconditioned that father wants. So Ratza Abba Kadeshes, if he doesn't want, it's not good, right? So if he doesn't, unconditioned based on the consent of father. So which father? Rashi helps us out and says Abav Shel Chasan. So Ratza Abba Gemara Farshal, Gemara is going to explain. It seems obvious. Mesa Ab. So what if the Chasan's father died? So we don't know, did he agree or not? So Harizim Kadeshes, we say it is a Kiddushin. Apparently we'll assume that he thought it was okay. Mesa Ben, if the child dies, so the question is, she's really married, there could be an issue of Yibum. So Malam Avaloimer Shina writes, we teach the father to say, I don't want, so that the Kiddushin will be Oiko Mafrei, there'll be no issue of Yibum. Says the Gemara. My Almanash Yirtzab, what does it mean my father wants? In, he has to say yes. So Mesa Av Harizim Kadeshes. If the father died, it's a good Kiddushin of a Halomer in. He didn't say yes. He died. So why would it be a good Kiddushin then? El, as we continue to Samach Gimel Mebeis, Almanash Sheyishtakaba. It means on condition my father's silent, and therefore if my father dies, he was silent. He was really silent, and therefore because of that, it's a good Kiddushin. So you have a Seifa. Mesa Ben Mlavnanas Avaloimer Sheinu Reitza Amai B'Hashosik. What do you mean we're going to teach the father to say no? He was already quiet. So once he was already quiet, that shtika is enough already that they're married. So the fact that the son dies a couple years later, let's say, and the father says no, that's too late. Rather, we're talking about a case that we're saying on condition that my father doesn't protest. So how's it possible? Like two different totally different cases. So Rabbi yeah, that's true. That's what it is. So Shema Minol Rabbi Yanai, we can see from here the chakinan mokmina masnisin betray taima. It's better to have one tan of our Mishnah, even splitting up the cases to two different ideas, than to say two different reasons. To say betray tonight two different people with one reason. So that's an interesting idea, that it's better that we should establish the Mishnah as one statement, one person. Even if the case is daichik a shtickle, it's better that the case should be a little bit different than having multiple people, especially if it's a Stam Mishnah. Says Rashi, El Almanash Yimcha Abba. Hach Seif and Tani Malamdin. So we teach the father to say no. Loma Sukma Karacious, not like the Resha. Belmanash Yishtok. The first case is on condition he's silent. Almanash Yimcha. Here it's as long as he doesn't protest. Chol Kama Demachi is so whenever he protests, Arko who the marriages were uprooted. Shailu Kavazman Lamacha. He didn't say when the Macha should take place. It could take place much later. And therefore if the son dies, we can tell the father to make a Macha, and therefore by doing that it will, Mafreya, not have been a good Kiddushin. Rabbi Yosef Borami Yomer L'Olam Chad Taima, who can actually say it's one reason, Umayel Manash Yirtza Abba, Manash Shul Yimcha Abba, Mikan Biad Shalishim Yoyim. So you say, my father shouldn't protest within a 30-day span of time. So therefore, if the father dies, so he didn't protest, and therefore it's a good Kiddushin. If the son dies, so if it's within a 30-day span of time, so then the father still has the ability to protest. Says the next Mishnah. Says the Masnisin. Kidashti es biti. I married my daughter off. Ani odelami kidashtia. I did a great thing. I married my daughter off. I just can't remember who it was. Uvo echad. Some guy comes off the street. Yomarani kidashtia. It was me. Neman. In that situation, we're going to believe this guy, which is a pretty interesting case. We'll see why. Ze omer ani kidashtia. Ze omer ani kidashtia. Let's say there's two guys that come and say, no, I'm the one that married her. No, I'm the one that married her. So shneim nois and get, both of them obviously will have to give a get because they created a suffix in this situation. The imratzu, if they want, echa nois and get, echa kainis. One can give the get and the other one could marry her. Says the Gemara, Omer Rav. We're going to focus on the shitas of Rav and Rav Asi here. Omer Rav, neman litin get, they're believed to give a get. Ve'enu neman lichnois. They're not believed to marry. Neman litin get. Why do we believe him when it says that he's believed? This guy comes. when he said if one guy comes and he said I married her, it just means he's believed to divorce her. Why? Because ein adam chaytav lo, person's not going to just stand up there and sin. If he really was not the one who married her, he's not going to give her a get, and then all of a sudden she's going to end up marrying someone else when she's really an Eishes Ish. So he's not must not be lying. So in that case, let him marry her. Because maybe his Yetzer Hara grabbed hold of him, and maybe he isn't a good Kiddushin. So we're not going to believe him for that. Rav Asi no, af nemun lichneis. Rav Asi disagrees with Rav and says you even believe him rather to marry her. Now, even though it's true that Rav Asi says we believe this one guy, that if he comes and says it was me that married her, so the din is that he could actually marry her, but he'll agree that that's not the case. But Omeris, if she says Niskadashti, I'm the one that did the Kiddushin, not that my father was, but it was me. Then Yudaslami Niskadashti. I don't remember who it was. Someone says I married you. In that case, he's not going to be believed. Okay, so we're making a distinction between when the father does it and he forgets, and the girl, the kala herself. Tanan, Ratzu echad and give echad kindness. If both of them come and two people say, I'm the one married to her, so then one can get, the one can marry. So tiyuf to the Rav. L'char it's a tiyuf to the Rav, because we see clearly they're allowed to get married. So Rav, Shani Hasam is different when there's two guys. Since the second person, irtute mirtas. He'd be afraid to lie. Tani Gavasa Rav Asi. So we have a Bryson supporter to Tosefta, like the Shita of Rav Asi, that he'll be even believed to marry her. Kiddashtia Espita, I married my daughter. Ani Odela mi Kiddashtia, I'm not sure who it was. And then someone says it was me. Af Neman Lichnois. It says Beferish, just like him, he says he's believed also to marry her. Uva Acher, someone comes, Vermani Kiddashtia. Later on, if someone says it, he's not going to be believed. He will not have the power to be able to answer her. However, if let's say a woman says, this is exactly what he said, a woman says, I'm the one that did the Kiddushin, I forgot who I married, it was me, there we're not going to believe her. Why? Or him? Because she will cover for him. So therefore, there's a distinction between the father, in which Rav Asi says the man is believed to marry her, as opposed to if she's the one that created this doubt. What is the din regarding skill? What does that mean? Says Rashi. Shalav is mahu liskol al yadu shalav, the father, Kleimer. Piv, on his testimony, Im Omer Kiddashti is biti. I married my daughter, off my daughter. The Edi Kiddushin ein boin lefanei. There's no witnesses that are coming. Vizinsa, but she committed adultery. She was having tashma with someone. Mahul haksek al piv kedin nar hamarasa losaikla. Can we call her namarasa so much that she'll actually get skila for having done so, based on the father's testimony? Rav Amar ein solkin. He says no. Rav Asi Amar no solkin. So Rav Amar ein solkin ki hemeina rachmana. When do we believe the fatherly surah? Is only to answer her to all men. However, lekatla, to have her actually killed, skil himin lo hemne. Rav Asi Amar no solkin lekul mils to the himne rachmana lav. The fathers believe for everything, even so far as the daughter getting skila. Rav Asi. Rav Asi says umodina will admit. If she's the one who said it, she and Sokan, then certainly there will be no din skila there. So we see again another chiluk between him and her, the girl and the father, whether or not again the man can marry, and also whether there's a din skila. V'yomer Avasi, hani shmaisa didi mirapson igre. So these sugyas are breaking through a roof. Hashta umaba makom she'im bolichnes kainis, in a situation where he could even marry her. Amarta solkin, you said there's a din skila, so makom she'im bolichnes ein kainis in a din shesolkin. So in a situation where he cannot marry her, certainly skila should take place. V'lohi u'av himin rachmana l'dida lo himina. We only believe the father, we don't believe her. So that's different. Says Rashi, Kagon she'amr niskadashti v'yeni odas l'mi. If she doesn't know who she married, we're strict. Even to the person who says that I'm married to you. Which means she's already married. We don't know who she's married to. Then certainly in that case she should get skila. So again, it's not true because we just believe the father, and that's why she gets skila, but not her. Okay. So that's the answer. No, we're not going to give skila even when it comes to the father. My son is a ben Tesha Shana V'yomecha. He's 9 years old. Bitizu, my daughter, is a basket Shana V'yomecha. She's 3. Neman L'Karban, based on that testimony, they are believed regarding the bringing of karbanos of Elul Makas, not to get a punishment of Makas, V'ul Oinshin, or any other punishments. Tanik Avas Rav Chisda. Beniza ben Yud Gimel Shana V'yomecha. My child is having a bar mitzvah today. Bitizu bas Yud Ben Shana V'yomecha. My daughter is having a bar mitzvah today. So on Samach Dalad Amud Aleph, Neman U'Nedarim L'Charamim L'Akdeshais V'Larachim. So he's believed because he or she has reached that age that he's believed regarding any of the Nedarim or Charamim and Hekdesh, any decorations that this person said at that age. However, he will not be believed when it comes to Makas or Oinshin. Adkam.